folks. Welcome to another episode of the Snowies Camping Show, joined by myself and my colleague Lauren. How are you going?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. We've just been talking about hay fever season.
We have.
So if we sound nasally, it's because we're sneezy
I
at the
don't
moment.
really generally get hay fever, but I think sometimes the transition of the seasons, you know, when you're going from, I always find it's like sort of when you're going from summer into autumn or maybe winter into spring, just that transition always stirs things up for
and then
people.
your body gets used to it. I find I get used to it. But yeah.
I think, you know, things like cranking heaters and then starting to potentially bring air conditioners back in, and a lot of that has stuff to do with it too.
But that's not what we're here to talk about today.
It is not
hay fever. But before we jump into the topic, if you haven't joined us before, please subscribe. You can do via our YouTube channel, your favourite podcast app. You can join in on the conversation at the Snowies Camping Banter Facebook group. And that's all of them.
That's
I
it.
was ready for the fourth one. I thought there isn't a fourth one, but you can always jump online and ask us questions there on any products we talk about too. But today, a bit of a general topic. Now, we have covered back in episode 4. We just had a bit of a flick through some old episodes and sort of to do a minimalist camping episode on packing light.
Yeah, packing minimal, because that's
stuff.
your primary principle is packing light.
Yeah. So this episode we've coined just a topic of car camping. Now, I know there's a few people in the Facebook group that camp just out of a car. And when I say a car, not a 4-wheel-drive necessarily, but might be a wagon or a sedan or in many cases even a hatchback.
Because not everybody has an SUV or has need for one or a 4-wheel drive.
Or can afford it. Like
True.
It's a 4-wheel drive is, I mean, I have a 4-wheel drive. It's not something you buy to save money. You've got to understand that there is an investment in keeping that up and running, and particularly when you use it for remote travel, you're investing a lot of money to make sure that's reliable.
Sorry, I'm going to interject, but there's also, I've recently downgraded from an SUV to a hatch, and mostly that's due to the economic climate and, you know, generally rising costs, and just thinking this is something that I can control that's, you know, contributing to my budget and things like that. But some people that might have larger vehicles and really like to go camping might also be feeling that pinch, but not thinking that it's realistic to maintain their lifestyle if they have a smaller car.
Yeah. So that was the premise of this, in ultimately making camping accessible to everyone, that you don't have to have roof racks and a trailer and all the bells and whistles. If you've got 4 wheels and a car on top of those 4 wheels, then you can get away with some gear to go camping still. There's lots of accessible locations that you can get to with 2-wheel drive vehicles.
Yeah. Mind you, though, if you have a Honda Civic and a family of 5, you might be pushing it.
Well, I mean, I guess there's some barriers. Trying to maintain a positive outlook on this.
Yes, definitely.
But hey, look, it's still potentially doable, I suppose. If you do have a turbo and a small trailer, you could probably tow a little bit as well. But I guess what we're saying is if you've got a small car, and you want to go camping, don't immediately write it off.
Yeah, don't write it off.
Have a look at what's out there. Jump in the group and ask some questions to the people who are doing it already in our group, because they've got some great suggestions on how you can camp out of small vehicles and utilise the space to the max.
So I guess first things first, there is a lot of really great what I call hybrid style gear, not necessarily the term that's official or anything, but it's gear that is aimed more so, I guess, for the entry level hiker or budget friendly hiker. But if you're someone who hikes regularly or you're doing long multi-day trips and things like that, it's probably not going to be suitable for you, because whilst they're light and they're compact, they might not weigh as much as the more technical gear and things like that. Yep. But the benefit to that is they also have that level of durability and not ultra lightness, which means that they're really sturdy and great for camping.
Yep.
So that's sort of what I mean by hybrid gear. It's like this area of gear that's hiking or camping.
So it's light enough to go hiking. The ultra lightweight hiker will see it as heavy. Yep. But the camper will see it as light. So you can do both with it.
Yeah.
I guess ultimately, if you are an ultra lightweight hiker, you've already got the gear to go camping out of a sedan anyway, because you generally fit everything in a backpack, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But this is in between. And if you go to that ultra lightweight level, you're usually spending a heck of a lot of money for it as well. As you mentioned, this is more affordable.
Yeah.
I'll follow I was going to jump into tents, but we've got that way ahead of time here.
We can jump into tents if you like. I just sort of smashed all of this info out from my brain.
Well, I guess before we jump into it, you probably need to adopt more of a hiking approach to your gear than camping potentially, because you've got to fit it all in a small amount of space. If you can fit everything in a backpack already, then you're all good. But you've got a bit more space. You've got the boot of a car.
Yeah.
So, I think
potentially a little bit of your back seat. But realistically, to go camping, what do you need? A shelter or a tent, like you said, something to sleep on.
Yep.
That's not going to make you miserable. Something to sit on. That's going to keep your bum dry.
Yep.
Something to cook on or eat out of.
Yep. And cook with.
Yep. So realistically, out of those sort of 4 things, it's not a huge amount else that you need, is there?
Hikers, trekkers do all that out of a backpack.
Yes, but in terms of when you're looking at what do I need to get set up for camping? Like if I'm someone who has a hatchback and camping's a barrier to me and I'd like to start going away for the weekend, what do I need?
Yeah.
A tent, bedding set up, some sort of portable kitchen set up and cooking of food.
Yep.
And not even necessarily that if you're going to places that have a communal camp kitchen, if you're going to campgrounds with a communal camp kitchen or places that have a barbecue, you might not even need to worry about a stove, and maybe some chairs.
Yep. Let's start with tents though. I know it's further down the list.
No, that's fine. Let's do it.
I think with tents, the category of tent here that fits this type of camping really well is that kind of 3-person hike tent category, 3 to 4-person hike tent category, which is too heavy for hiking. And even if you split it up, you still got to fly it an inner and it can be too heavy for 2 people to carry. Not that you can't do it, but from a car camping perspective, a 3 to 4-person hike tent packs up small, but you've got space for 4 people to sleep. Now you don't have space to stand up and get dressed. You don't have a big storage amount of space to put a fridge and an icebox and all those sort of things, but you've got reliable shelter to sleep in and probably an awning or something at the front. Now I use Cedar Summit's latest range of tents.
I think they're the Icos.
There's the Icos, but the Telos does have a 3-person version, and that's got a bunch of different setup options.
Yeah.
Now, this is an expensive way about it, but
because I think the Telos and the Alto are designed for like bike packing and hiking in mind, and one's like a freestanding and one's a semi-freestanding. But I think their Icos tent or the Ecos tent range is designed more as like a base camp.
Yep.
Sort of camping, affordable hiking hybrid.
But then there's also brands like Black Wolf probably have a good range of that 4-person sort of range category of dome tent. A dome's probably a good way to go here because they're going to pack up small. They're simple. They're functional. Other brands like Austrail all have tents
smaller versions.
That affordable, compact range.
Yeah.
It's going to suit a smaller vehicle.
I think the Spartan 3, Explore Planet Earth Spartan 3. Yeah. That's a really great option, and one of the most popular ones I think that we have in our range that people invest in for compact camping, potentially even motorbike touring, because again it is on the heavier side, but you know the pole structure and stuff makes the tent a bit more square, gives you a bit more headspace, and it does pack up nice and small, but it's quite durable, like it's more heavy duty materials and things like that, so that gets a really good rap.
Yep.
And it's really affordable.
And in terms of other shelter, because you might think, well, I'm camping in winter, I've got a 4-person dome tent, and if it rains, I'm stuck in that dome tent. I can't get out and walk around and cook. A lot of campers who've got the space will take a gazebo or something like that, an awning on the side of their car to create that sheltered space. Bit limited with a sedan. You might have a roof rack that you could put a small awning on, but it's quite heavy for a small sedan.
Yeah.
But have a look at tarps, like lightweight tarps like Austral's Camperfly.
Yes.
You probably need to throw a couple of poles in, but the poles aren't overly heavy.
They're probably going to be the largest pack size that you have in terms of length potentially.
Yep.
Which is pretty great.
But you can create a big sheltered space under one of those outside of your 4-person tent, so you've got that undercover space as well as your sleeping space.
I just want to interject here because I know sometimes visualizing how that would look, especially if you're potentially new to camping or you've not done tarp shelters before. And this was raised recently in the Facebook group of somebody sort of wanting a bit more inspiration because they'd gone for tarp shelters and nothing seemed to be working really well. But on our website, on like each of the product pages, we have a customer review section, and in that section people can also upload photos and you can actually filter the reviews by customer photos. And if you go to something like the Austrail Camperfly on our website, you'll see there's a really huge range of different ways that people have used that fly to set up for additional shelter with their small 3 or 4 person tents or their swags or things, and it's very functional. So that can be really great for inspiration.
Packs up to a portion of the size and
half of a pillowcase.
Weighs a portion of what a gazebo does.
Yeah.
So it fits into a bit of a car nice and easily.
Yes. So
that's I will note it. I just want to note here that you've written 33p sizes.
I know I have. So, I've made very many grammatical mistakes and spelling mistakes. I
could have just let that go, but I just thought I'd.
It's okay. You got to take them where you can. Right.
So moving on.
I'm going to go to bedding now.
Bedding, good one. Yep.
So a lot of those, obviously you need to have a bedding that's going to fit in your shelter. And so sometimes a lot of people, if they're going for those smaller hiking tents, they do get a bit caught out because the limitations, maybe the floor tapers, for example. And so putting in a normal rectangular camping mattress can catch you out. But if you are going for the larger sort of 3P ones and you're making sure that the tent that you're going for doesn't have a tapered base, a lot of those 3P ones could fit something like, say, a Zempire Monster Mat or an Exped Mega Mat double, like fit a double in them.
You won't fit 3 of the full-size camp mats in a 3 to 4 person dome tent.
No, like they're 3 hiking mats, but if you got like a 3-person, for example, the Spartan 3P, you can fit a double Monster Mat or a double Exped Mega Mat in there, like a 10 centimetre camp mat.
Yep.
Having said that though, those mats do pack quite large and bulky.
Yeah.
So they will be packing probably 2, 3, 4 times the size of your tent if you were going to go with a smaller tent like that.
Yep.
But for a lot of people, sleeping comfortable is really important. And so if you are wanting to do car camping, having smaller, compact, lighter weight gear might actually just allow you to be able to take one of those bigger, heavier, juicier camping mats, and maybe that's going to be your compromise, or what you're not going to compromise on because you want a really good sleep. But alternatively, there are things like Exped do a Versa, and they do another one. They used to do Sin Mat and Down Mat, and then now they do a Versa and
which are insulated air-filled mats, right?
Yeah, insulated air-filled mats basically. Yep. They're very comfortable and they're very warm and they've got that insulating factor. They're a lot better than an air mattress, for example, a lot more durable. The Mega Mat that Exped do, which comes in that classic red and green.
They've got an air-filled one.
They do an air-filled version of that, which is also 10 centimetres thick. And
it's 12 actually.
Is it 12? Yeah. So I had my eye on those and we couldn't – I've had my eye on those for years and we couldn't get them in Australia yet.
Oh.
And so –
now they're available.
I've got Versas and now we've got the Mega Mat air version. I'm like, what the? I want of those. But anyway.
I did a video on that. Check it out because I compared the regular one with the air one, and they're portion of the size. Portion of the pack size.
A fraction of the size. Yeah. So, and they're a really great option if you want something plush and you don't want to compromise on the mats.
So that's kind of the camping side of that's the in-between of the bulky camping and the hiking.
Yeah, that's that sort of hybrid-y stuff, yeah.
Alternatively, you probably need to adopt a hiking attitude towards it again and just get a lighter weight mat. You can get thick, lightweight ones. They cost a lot more, but the ones you just mentioned are really good options.
So you also have a lot of people like to camp on stretchers. Yeah. Now, it's not necessarily going to be the same as a camping stretcher because you can get like Helinox Cot One, for example, but we're talking a lot of dollars for that. Very high tech, very lightweight. But they're quite low to the ground. They're like 20 to 30 centimetres off the ground, but you can get extension legs for those. But if having a super high bed isn't something that you need, but you do like the idea of being off the ground, you just want that extra bit of comfort of a stretcher, you can get Explore Planet Earth now do a Pegasus.
Yep.
Which is like their chair range and lightweight compact furniture range. It's sort of like a great I don't like the word budget friendly because budget friendly sort of seems to suggest that it's a budget item, which it's not. But it's a more
it's kind of that middle of the range,
more affordable,
Yep.
Similar to Helinox, but a more affordable option.
Yep.
And there's a couple of other brands out there, like I think a couple of people have mentioned Nature Hike and other brands you can get off Amazon, but they do a very similar stretcher that is low to the ground, but it's compact and it's lightweight and it will probably pack the same size as a tiny tent.
Just be aware once again that if you put a high stretcher in a small 4-person dome, you're quickly losing length because of the sloping sides of the tent. So
those lower stretchers are the better sort of way to go anyway.
Or a thick mat just straight on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sleeping bags now. Sleeping bags are probably an easy one to get caught up on because you can buy a sleeping bag. If you buy it online, you might think it's great. Then you get it and you realise it's actually really bulky.
Yeah.
If you buy 2 of those, you can take up a lot of space with a sleeping bag. So once again, adopt that hiking sort of mentality. Have a look at, if you can, down, because down will pack down to a portion of the size of a synthetic bag and offer
just the nature of the feel and the kind of insulation.
Yeah. Or a bit more technical sort of engineering applied, I suppose, to the synthetic feels inside.
Yeah. Just think bringing your own pillow from home is always a good thing. You potentially might use it in the car if you're a passenger and you want to sort of have a bit of a nap against your window and things like that anyway.
Yep.
But there are a couple of good sleeping bag options. And again, if your mattress and your sleeping bag are the bulkiest things in your kit, you're laughing.
If you get a good sleep at night, then that's a big way of enjoying your camping trip.
Yep. 100%.
So we've got all the pack dimensions on our website for all of our products. So have a close look at that. And if you've got a small car, just have a think about if you buy like I think about a Coleman Big Game C-12 bag.
Yep.
It's about 50 centimetres diameter and probably, I don't know, 60 centimetres in length, probably more than.
Yeah.
It's going to take up a lot of space in your boot. So just have a think about how that's going to fit in.
What do you want to do next?
Well, let's go. We've got kitchen gear and cookware. It's kind of same. Let's jump into furniture next.
Yep.
Because there is some one of these brands has been around for quite a while, but probably in the last maybe 3 to 4 years, there's been a lot more compact options for camping furniture, not just hiking. So Helinox make chairs, tables. They've got like a cafe style table as well. I've got Helinox chairs that I use for camping simply because they pack up to one comfortable Helinox chair packs up to less than half the size of probably an equivalent quad fold chair and weighs a portion or probably about a quarter of the weight.
Do you think, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it just struck me then, do you think brands like Ozten and Darchi and stuff and 230 that do make those big chairs potentially going to explore more compact and lighter weight versions in the future? Because I feel like Helinox, obviously, since they've become more prevalent and people are really cottoning on to how great they are, there's a lot of other brands that are sort of producing similar things. And like we see with air tents and a shift that's progressively happening amongst all camping brands towards dabbling in that, I wonder if we're going to see the same with furniture.
We could do. So we talk Helinox, but there's also Explore Planet Earth, who for quite a while have made as you mentioned before, a middle of the sort of range, similar products, but not to quite the same maybe expensive materials that's put into it. And most recently, a brand called Wanderlight, which I think are really good chairs. I did the videos on them recently, and I thought they were really well considered. Newer to us, so we don't have a long history on them, but they seem really good. And they will do tables as well. You do need to do away with the fact that you're not going to have big, comfortable arms to rest your arms on. The tables are more compact. So you're not setting up camping to have this kind of big table that you're going to have 4 people sit around. So the table might be something else that you might want to consider. That might be something you go, I need a big table. I'm going to get 2 or 4 compact chairs. but I just want a table that I can sit down and have my breakfast or have my dinner.
Mind you, though, having said that, there are some other brands that are more traditional camping gear type brands that make a table that's compact. Like, for example, Zempire do a slat pack table. It's a bamboo table. It's quite large.
There's kit pack and slat pack.
Slat pack and kit pack. You're right. So I think kit pack's bamboo, slat pack might be aluminium.
Yep.
And they are quite large tables, but they pack, to sort of, I guess, cricket bat size, but a bit more squared off. Do you know what I mean? They're just like a little rectangular parcel, and they're not too crazy, but you do get a really large, really solid, decent sized table out of that.
Yep. And they're pretty good in terms of how solid they are, because none of the camping tables are solid like your table at home. They all wobble a little bit.
Yeah.
But those ones are pretty good. Some of the really light, compact ones, you do have the benefit of a smaller pack size. I think of I think it's Outdoor Connection Fortis, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a good table, but a little bit wobbly and not quite as durable on the top. It flexes a little bit, but it packs up nice and small for the size of it. So there's always a trade-off, but that's kind of what we're looking at here with car camping, right? You can still do it, but you just need to understand that you're not going to have
what your limitations are, and looking at the products and sort of trying to find the best one for you. And I did just want to make a note there that when you were talking about the chairs and things before and not having the big armrests and all of those sort of extra features that you would in a traditional chair, that doesn't necessarily mean you're compromising comfort. So you might be compromising some features, but those chairs are still incredibly comfortable.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, like I sit in them sometimes and think, but it's just because I'm really used to my camp chair. Yeah. But the reality is they're very comfortable. And if that's the chair that I'm using, within a trip or two, I'm going to be used to it. And I'm not going to miss my other one.
Transition from one to the other is the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
So furniture, lots available. Once, as we mentioned with the sleeping bags, have a look at the pack size. You probably need to do a bit of a game of Tetris in the back of your car with these things and maybe measure some stuff out. Grab a heap of boxes, maybe roughly the same dimensions, and work out how it's all going to fit in your car if you're buying it all at the same time, that is.
Yeah.
Because it's probably going to be important that you make the right decisions for each thing, because if one thing is too big or one thing just kind of fits in a way that it means there's a heap of space left but it's not enough space to really store anything, it's going to frustrate you when you pack your car. So, have a bit of a think about it. But moving on to the other, probably most important bit, aside from sleeping, that's food.
Yes.
You want to be able to have enough space to take food. I think you want to, if you enjoy beer or wine, you want to be able to take a beer or wine. If you like chocolate, you want to be able to take your chocolate. You don't really want to go camping and then just live on bread and butter. Like it's because for me, part of it is enjoying the coffee in the morning and the smell of cooking the food over the fire and all those sort of things.
It's a whole thing, isn't it? Yeah.
So you want to make the most of that. So starting with, we've got cookware and kitchen gear written here. So let's start with kitchen gear. And as you mentioned before, there's a lot of campgrounds who have communal kitchens. If you're camping in a caravan park, then a lot of the communal kitchens now in caravan parks are amazing.
And they have pots and pans. They have pretty much everything.
Yeah. I remember staying in one where they did pancakes on some mornings. So the Lions Club would come in and cook pancakes. I'm like, sweet, the kids get free food. I don't have any cleaning up or anything. That's amazing. To do. They just have this trailer and these massive, just buckets of pancake mix and just making pancakes and just pumping them out.
I've seen some community groups that have those barbecue trailers. They're boss.
Yeah. So if you've got kids and you're doing that type of camping, then utilize those things, because I know some people might go, it's not really camping. You're in a caravan park and you're not cooking over your stove or whatever, but
you're not at home.
Just enjoy it.
You just have a good time.
It's there.
Yeah,
people are cooking pancakes. I'm going to line up and get one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So use the community things wherever you can.
Yeah.
The kitchens I saw in most caravan parks that I've stayed at in recent years have been really clean and really functional.
Really clean.
Not like they used to be. Not a second thought that's left to get dirty. But there are a bunch of compact cookers that you can get. Now, stove, if you go for a 25,000 BTU 2-burner hyperflame stove or something, it's a big stove.
Massive stove. You carry LPG, big canisters.
Yep. You might want to have a look at maybe a single burner or something, and this is where you compromise. If you've got a single burner, you're going to have to cook your pasta sauce and then cook your pasta and then try and sort of warm them up after. So you're compromising there. You can't keep one warm while you're cooking the other. But if that means if you have to cook them separately but still have a hot meal, it just takes a bit longer, but you're still getting out camping, then that's a better scenario, isn't it? Than not going because you can't fit a 2-burner cooker in your car. So,
and sometimes there are, I mean, we've done like camping food prep episodes before. I can't think of numbers off the top of my head. And we've done an episode specifically on your camp kitchen and what you pack and things. But there are ways that you can work around that by prepping some stuff at home. And whether that means you prep your mince at home and it's just in a tub in your esky or whatever, then if you cook your pasta, once your pasta's, al dente, you can chuck your mince in and just stir it through to warm it up. And it's, there are ways to work around that. So if a single burner is what works for you, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a limitation necessarily.
Absolutely. So those lunchbox stoves are a classic example. They work off a butane canister. I'm not a big fan of those because of the disposable nature of the canister, but you can get similarly sized single burner stoves, but you do then need to think about the gas bottle that you're going to carry. So that's where these lunchbox stoves are beneficial because you can just take a 4-pack of canisters.
And those 4-pack of canisters might cost you $5. Like it's very affordable. The only downside to those as well, which we've possibly touched on before, is that if you're camping somewhere and it's dead winter and you're getting up and it's early in the morning, that particular fuel type isn't very good at combusting in cold temperatures. So bear that in mind. It might take a long time to get your water going.
In which case you probably want to be looking at hiking stoves.
Hiking stoves are very underrated.
Yeah. So a hiking stove will use different canister that's an isobutane propane.
Yeah.
Works better in the colder weather.
Yeah.
And they pack up tiny.
I mean, something like, for example, and I know that it's not necessarily a cost-conscious decision, but they have, for example, like your Jetboil Flash or your Jetboil Minimos, right? You have a cooking system that's an investment to begin with, but it gives you something that very quickly boils water. And if you're doing sort of more lightweight camping and maybe you have some dehydrated food or you're just needing packets of soup, you want to have a packet of soup and a cheese sandwich for lunch or something. It's really quick, really easy, super economical way to heat up your water. But then you also have the flexibility with those to put a little pot stand on it, especially if you're going with a Minimo, it might come with a pot stand. So you can use compact like little skillets and pots and things that you can still sit on there and cook. And it's just obviously smaller volume. We're not talking sort of family size here, maybe for solo or a small group of friends. And that's a really great alternative.
Yep.
There is flexibility there. You also have options like, also, again, it's sort of more expensive, the MSR Whisper Light, but I'm trying to think of potentially an alternative to which is like a little liquid fuel stove that
Coleman
you can
have their Sportster, which is
is that what they call it?
It's runs on Shellite. There's that little silver stove that's quite good, and I reckon there's some people in the group who use that as well.
Something different now. It's a 533 maybe.
Yeah, it's a single burner compact stove that runs off of unleaded as well as Shellite, and that fixes the issue of carrying LPG gas canisters because you can just carry a litre of Shellite or a couple of litres of Shellite if you like. So that's a really good option for car camping.
Yeah. And, that's sort of – it's a little bit bigger and a bit more heftier than a smaller camping stove. So you could put a proper pot on there if you wanted. And it wouldn't be too outlandish to even have two of them.
No, I think people have done that. Yeah,
because they are compact, they are small, they do pack small. You could have two going. You've got things like Jetboil Genesis as well.
That's expensive but really popular system.
Expensive but incredibly popular system because it essentially is a 2-burner stove that folds in half and packs up like a stack of dinner plates basically in terms of size.
I've not had to play with that, but it looks like an awesome system.
It does.
So I think largely what you take in terms of cooking is going to depend on what you want to cook. I think the big thing though, and we've mentioned this before, as you said before as well, preparation before you go, remove packaging, prep before you go, because you're going to have to put this food in probably a tub or something as well.
Yep.
And that's going to take up space really quickly. So if you can remove as much packaging or whatever as you can before you leave, then you fit more in that tub.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned an icebox or a fridge here. Now I know if you ask on the group, you'll get on the Facebook group, you'll get tons of ideas on how to manage cold stuff in a small space through. I know there's people who have a small fridge in the car and an icebox and a system of like, and I've used it before, freeze it before you go.
Yep.
That frozen stuff then goes into the icebox. It does two things. It's sitting there defrosting, but it's also keeping the other stuff cold at the same time. Requires a bit more management, but it's a way that you can have good food whilst camping out of a small vehicle, a small amount of space. So.
And even things like long life products, like long life milks, for example, you can get the smaller ones or you can get the 1 litre ones. And, you know, if you're winter camping, I know there'll probably be people who freak out here at me suggesting this, but if you're winter camping and it's a couple and you might go through a litre of milk in 24 to 48 hours, and if it's cold enough and it's winter, you probably get away with just leaving your UHT thing on your table at your campsite, getting frosty cold
let it cool down overnight and let it, put it in your icebox during the day.
Like it's, you know, there are sort of ways to juggle that without necessarily having to have a fridge. But
the fridge is probably a bit of a barrier to some because you do need to think about how you're going to power it. As a traditional sedan won't have a 12-volt outlet with a battery that you can run it from.
Yeah.
Which means you need to install a battery as well. So probably in reality for car camping in a small car, without the investment, a good icebox is a good way to go, and manage that icebox with frozen stuff to start with. Eat the fresh stuff as you go, let the frozen stuff defrost, and just monitor how cold things are in there, keep it out of the sun.
We do have an episode specifically on that, which was way back in the early days as well, and I don't know the number, but we'll put it in the show notes.
Cool.
But in terms of cookware, there's some really nifty compact stuff from Cedar Summit, which is called their X Pot range, where you can get saucepans in various sizes, kettles. There's even like one with 2 pot sizes and a fry pan, and they accordion down basically to flat when they're not in use, and then they pop up to a 3D pot when they are silicon sides, anodized aluminium base.
Yeah, silicon infused to the anodized aluminium, which a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to melt the silicon. That's no good. It's not like. I can understand why people would question the durability of it using it over an open flame.
Yeah.
What I can say is I have an X kettle. And
isn't it like one of your favourite bits?
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used it for 4 months. Now I'm a coffee drinker. So at least I guarantee I used it once a day
minimum,
at least for that entire 4 months on a camp stove, in camp kitchens, not on a fire.
Yep.
You can't just have flames blaring around the side, but over a gas stove.
Yeah.
Still functional, no damage. Still does exactly what it needs to do.
Yeah. No stress there at all.
Common sense there. The flame just wants to be around the base of the pot, not lipping up over the sides. A little bit is okay.
Yeah.
They work really well. And so
compact.
But
again, if you want a fry pan and 2 pot sizes that'll nest into each other and fold flat, and it's, again, maybe what 3 or 4 dinner plates stacked in your cupboard would be, and that's the size of 2 pots in a pan, you're laughing.
Alternatively, no, they're not cheap. You can get more affordable options, which are like nesting things.
I think there is a brand that are called Pop Up as well. Is a brand that does some pots.
Do a range, and there's a caravan based brand that do some nesting things as well. But don't discount the idea of keeping it really simple. A cheap billy, that billy can store your food in the back of your car. So you're not trying to fit the billy, and the billy is just a vessel to store the food. The downside there is when you want to use the billy, you got to take the food out, use it, and then pack the food back in. But that's another way to get around that storage space versus versatility in the car without having to buy all this compact gear. If you can afford the X-Pot range though, do it, because they're great for this. They're perfect for this scenario. And
they also have things like mugs and bowls as well that work on the same premises, that all sort of flat pack. Because, packing a lot of that stuff can get a little bit bulky for people.
Look for nesting, flat pack stuff. Yep. And if you can't do that, use the space inside for storage in transit. Now,
talking about storage and kitchen stuff, a lot of people just by default would go to a tub. And a tub is a really great option, but as you've mentioned already, you're potentially going to have a tub of your food. So then having a second tub with your kitchen gear in it might not work for you. So there are some things like 230 do a kitchen sling, and there's a couple of different versions of that. So they're versatile depending on what you want to do with them. But they hold some cups and plates and knives and forks and utensils and everything, and it just folds and rolls up basically into like a relatively compact pack. So there's some videos of you with those.
Yeah, I do. It was a while ago. I do remember
on
doing
YouTube,
them.
sort of running through them.
Yep.
And they can be a really great option because they can just sit packed on your shelf in your shed, and they can just go straight into your car. And there's an element of, even though they've got hard stuff in them, there's an element of sort of softness on them.
Yep.
So you can probably like poke them in and jam them into spaces, and a lot more sort of packable when you're talking about having to play Tetris and have limited space than something like a tub would be.
I think you raise a good point there that the tubs are rigid.
Yeah.
So you're always stuck with having to fit that rigid space in. Whereas if you're able to move to these things where you're putting hard things in it, but the sides are softer, it's going to be a little bit easier to pack your sleeping bag next to it, because what can squash will squash a little bit to allow that extra space. And when you're talking a small sedan, that extra sort of 5 centimeters of space is really useful. And then with a tub, if you've used half your gear, you've still got that airspace that is in your car. Whereas if it's in a soft bag, could
like
be a dry
large
bag,
drawer bag even.
Drawer bag, anything soft. As you use it, it all packs down and you get more space in your car. And I do like that part of the camping trip where you start out, your car is packed to the gun walls. It's got to be packed like Tetris. And then you use a bit of stuff and suddenly packing becomes easier because you've just got a little bit of space to maneuver.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I agree.
That's all the notes we had. There is going to be, and I'm making a call on this, there's going to be tons of feedback from people on our group about this. So anyone looking at getting into car camping, please ask questions, ask away on the group.
Yep.
And on our YouTube comments as well, because there's going to be tons of tips.
There is, yeah.
Don't let the size of your vehicle limit your ability to get out camping.
Absolutely not. That's probably the biggest takeaway from this episode, I'd say.
Cool. Anything else?
No, I'm done.
That was cool.
It was cool.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe, YouTube and Facebook. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Catch you later.
See you guys.